Next up, unfinished business. Alderman Mitchell.
Madam President, I'm aware of one item of unfinished business that was noticed pursuant to Rule 41. It was a substitute ordinance regarding cannabis-related establishments, and I defer to Chairman Tunney.
The chair recognizes Chairman Tunney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one item that I noticed up pursuant to Rule 41, a substitute ordinance amending municipal code chapters 17-3, 17-7, 17-9, and 17-14 regarding cannabis-related establishments, which was deferred and published and appears in the Journal of Proceedings of September 14, 2021 as SO 2021-3249. If anyone wishes to speak on the ordinance, we did give you a hard copy in the desk. Anyone wants to speak on the item? Otherwise, I'll move past this by a roll call vote.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Pardon me. The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez, and then the chair recognizes Alderman Moore. Apparently, Alderman Lopez defers.
Alderman Moore, thank you, Madam President. I just want to say, as it relates to this ordinance, it's a tough situation, but we have to pass it. Everybody know from the beginning, I was one of a few aldermen who wanted to hold the first ordinance until we got participation. As we say, the horse is out the barn. And unfortunately, what I'm hearing is that many of our equity license holders may be in a position that they're just going to sell their licenses. We can't do nothing, but it's not the perfect situation because we didn't do what we were supposed to do in the beginning. And as I talk to the different equity holders, they're saying, if I don't vote for this, that's going to hurt them even more. So I'm not in the business, they're in the business. I have to do what's best for them. So I stand in support of this ordinance today, and so that hopefully we can move forward and somebody can get something out of it. That's some of the equity holders can get something, the minority equity holders can get something out of it. So thank you, Madam President. I stand in support of this ordinance.
Thank you, Alderman Moore. The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, members of the City Council. I rise again in opposition to this ordinance. I rise in opposition because I know that while we are yet again trying to correct the mistakes of Springfield, this will not help those individuals who we are truly trying to make whole because of the laws of the past. Half the people who are going to benefit from this rush job are fronts for individuals who are not true social equity individuals. They are manipulating and gaming this system and preying on our sympathies to get this done now, knowing full well that they are going to profit on a system that was designed to help lift those most impacted by marijuana laws. This is wrong. We can slow down. We can do this right. We almost did it right several months ago when many of us were in this room for 12 hours in one day trying to make sure that we corrected the mistakes last time when Springfield said they had gotten it right. And what we have seen in the months since is that they've admitted that they got it wrong. Mistakes keep happening and they will continue to happen until someone finally steps up and says, hold on a minute. Let's get this right. Let's do right by those most impacted. I ask my fellow members not to fall for the emotional argument that we're somehow going to hurt people by delaying to do this right. The hurt will come by doing this wrongly, by failing to, in this moment, to pass the ordinance that encapsulates all the concerns that people have, all the people in industry that they have. There are some that are working to make this better even now, but we're not talking about what that effort is. We're rushing on this piece. And I ask my members, if you will not hold it, then to vote this down. Thank you, Madam President.
Chair recognizes Alderman Beal.
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I just feel compelled to, because once again, the sky is falling. The sky was falling the very first time cannabis was brought before us, saying that we needed to do something, that this was good, social equity. People of color are going to participate in this program. It's great. Here we are again. It was great for our community. And here we are almost 3 years later, and not one person of color is involved in this program. The industry wrote this ordinance. The industry helped pass this ordinance. The industry does not want people of color part of this program. We know that. When are we going to continue to stop going along to get along? When are we going to stand up and truly fight for our communities? The people of color have been hurt historically by the war on drugs. And here we are again saying the sky's falling, we need to hurry up and pass this so social equity people can get a piece of the pie. And half of these people are fronts, the other half gonna sell their license. When are we gonna stop, y'all? When are we gonna truly stand up for our communities? When are we gonna when are we gonna just stop saying, you know what? Let me just hurry up and do this because, and move on to the next thing. Ladies and gentlemen, this body is charged every single day to do what's right by our communities. Not do what's right just to go along to get along. Our people are not getting any parts of this industry, not one. And nobody's saying a word. Only a few people voted against the original ordinance. We were in the room next door. Everybody was running in saying, we need to vote for this, y'all need to vote for this. And I pleaded for you all not to vote for this. And here we are today, saying the sky is falling once again. Social equity is the savior. This ordinance is the next savior for our community. And we're not going to get another dime out of this ordinance. I'm just asking you all to go ahead and vote for it, but I guarantee you the results are going to be the same. Nothing's going to change. Our people are not going to get a piece of it. And one day, you all are going to get tired of just being tired. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Madam President. That's interesting. This sky really isn't falling, but it is raining. And it is raining $100 bills. And some of us will not have the opportunity to partake in those proceeds. However, when I was in appraisal school, the instructor said something. They said, it is what it is. And what it is that we had an opportunity, yes, to deal with this 2.5 years ago. We as a body decided not to do that way at that time. The state has enabled legislation. It is what it is. The changes that have been made to the ordinance at the request of many of the social equity applicants themselves. Again, it is what it is. And the interesting part, we say that half are fronts. That means that half are not. And I don't think it's incumbent upon us to hold up those that are legitimate. And if they are fronts, that process will be taken care of through another body. But for us, as far as the city is concerned, opening up the downtown area to social equity applicants, I believe is something that is important. Giving those individuals that are legitimate concerns to do business as relates to cannabis that are social equity applicants is what we need to do to move forward. Again, the sky is not falling, it's raining, $100 bills. And our folks still have not had an opportunity to participate in the largesse of that particular economy. So again, I would think it would be important upon us, as far as the social equity applicants are concerned, to allow them the opportunity to operate in the areas where we know are the most lucrative. I want to thank Alderman Riley for his work in the working group on this, as we talked about the exclusion zone. as we broke it down a little more so that it does create the opportunity for businesses to come down, these new licensees to come down, get involved and participate. And so hopefully that they can catch some of those $100 bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Sixto Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to just urge our colleagues to judge our decisions by the history and what history has shown us. Certainly, there has been improvements the minute that the council took action and put a hold on this ordinance. I want to commend the Block Caucus in particular to leading these efforts to make sure that our communities, the neighborhoods across the city are included in this important ordinance. Time after time, we see the most vulnerable residents, the ones affected by the criminal justice system, the ones affected by this very, very industry, not being part of it. We hear it time after time. And we have seen that taking the time has made improvements, but we are not yet. What we need is to make sure that we level the playing field so that we can truly have equity in these decisions. I think that the alternative, the status quo, is clear. 524 homicides this year, 2,344 shootings, and this just last weekend, 56 people being shot, 9 fatally. When is it going to be enough for us as a council to advocate for those applicants, those equity applicants that are truly bringing our young people, all people in our communities to be part of these decisions? I urge this floor to work in Springfield, to take our time to make sure that equity applicants have a shot at this important opportunity that will yield revenue and opportunities for our neighborhoods. This is about leveling the playing field. We know that when we take our time and we act as legislators, we can make better decisions. We got to urge Springfield to have an agenda with City Council to get this right. We're failing the most vulnerable by rushing this and allowing corporations and those who benefit by these decisions to dictate the terms in which we need to approve these ordinances. I urge the council to take their time. And I'd like to motion we defer this item so that we can take our time.
Sir, your motion is out of order. The chair recognizes Alderman Burnett.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I want to thank you also for allowing me to be on the working group. I thank Will. We worked with Will. I'd like to commend Alderman Brendan Rowley for allowing for more area in his ward to be available for a social equity applicant. You know, these things are very challenging because you don't want to hurt anyone. You want to help folks. You know, one of my, and we're very much at a disadvantage because of Springfield's laws and things that happen in Springfield in regards to this legislation. You know, myself and Alderman Villegas, two of the main things we kept pushing and we kept going around and around and around and around with the law department in reference to possibly having social equity in perpetuity. You know, the concern was that if someone gets one of these, win one of these licenses, that they have to keep, even if they sold it, that they have to keep a social equity component of it. And that's one of the charges we kept trying to go around with the law department, and we couldn't do it from our level because it has to be done on a state level. I like to encourage folks down in Springfield to think about that so that everyone don't sell out. One of the challenges with all of these marijuana dispensaries is that one, it's challenging to borrow money to open up a facility because the federal government, banks won't loan you money because the federal government still don't recognize it, right? So some of these guys can't even put their money in the bank. So they have to try to get folks with money. I mean, to help them out in order to deal with these facilities. And also the other challenge for them is that they have to, before they can even open up, similar to our liquor establishments, before they can even open up, they have to spend money and build a place out and do all of these things before they can even get approved in Springfield. So they literally have to spend millions of dollars before they can even get the license 100%. Even though they got granted a license, before they can even get it, they have to do all of these things. So it costs them a lot of money. They got to get it built out, get it approved, all of those things. So, you know, a lot of the social equity applicants, I think, didn't know it was going to cost as much as it's going to cost. Definitely, they are looking for partners and they're trying to get partners and they're trying to do what they can to keep a piece of it. I just pray and I hope that they keep a piece of it and that they find some other minority investors to invest with them. But it's not as easy as folks think it is. You know, after we vote on this tomorrow, it's not going to happen right away. Folks still going to be scrambling around, and some of them going to find themselves in a position where they may not even be able to do it because it's a large undertaking. So I just hope that, you know, those of us who know people with money, in particular minority folks with money, if we can encourage them to invest in some of these things and partner. I met a guy, I saw a guy Friday, and he was telling me he got a couple of licenses and he's trying to build a group together. So I connected him with a couple of people, African Americans that I knew that had some money to try to invest with him, because it's not an easy undertaking. And we got to recognize this, but at the same time, it's going to take them a lot of time to be able to do this thing. And we need to allow them the time to start getting it together. They have to take that first step. And if we hold this up, we may not even get them an opportunity to recognize what they can and they can't do. I hope that they all don't sell out. I hope that they will keep a piece of these establishments so that there can be some wealth building in our community and some continuous wealth building. We're handcuffed at our level of what we can do because everything really happens from the state level. I commend them in Springfield for making all of these licenses available, but they need to put something in there that says it has to be social equity in perpetuity. As I said on one of the hearings, some of the marijuana dispensaries that open up in my ward, I encourage them to do some creative things to get some minority partners, right? Whether they let the guy, they lease from a black guy and he gets a percentage of the profits from the lease or whatever the case may be. And then guess what happened? Even the white guys are selling their places. Even the white dispensaries have sold their places, then all bets are off. So we really need to see something else, but I think that we don't need, I know that we don't need to stop at this point. We need to continue, and we need to continue to try to figure out other ways of helping these folks to be able to sustain themselves in this business. And we need to call on those folks in our society that do have money to invest in these things. And granted, a lot of these folks are looking for investments. And hopefully, if they do sell or they do get investors, that they get some minority investors so it can be a true social equity endeavor continuously. So I want to thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank Will and all of the people in that section of your office who have been diligently working on this thing and trying to figure out all of the things that we ask in order to make this thing fair. But we cannot not do anything. We need to do something to give these guys an opportunity to be able to position themselves in order to open up these dispensaries across the city. And hopefully we pray that they have continuous social equity from here on out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. The chair recognizes Alderwoman King.
Thank you, Madam President. I too feel compelled to speak out on this today. I didn't plan to. But, you know, after hearing from several of my colleagues, I just feel compelled. You know, we had the chance to do this right years ago. Me and a number of my colleagues, especially on the Black Caucus, compelled this administration, compelled Springfield to hold off on this and to really get this right. We didn't heed that message, and that's why we're here today, talking about it again with the same type of rhetoric, you know, that if we don't do this now, you know, our communities aren't going to be able to see the benefits from this, even though they basically were the ones that, you know, during the war on drugs, got locked up for all of this. You know, we had lobbyists coming, telling us we've got to do this now for all of the reasons, the barn's out the door, the same things. And in Springfield, I will say that the bill somewhat addressed social equity, but still didn't address economic equity. I said it was akin to saying that you can pass go, but can't collect 200. Springfield and the city still have the opportunity to get this right. And it's not about holding anybody hostage, because we could do it in a day. We could do it overnight. It's really just about changing a few things. In the city, we can change what it means to be a social equity applicant so that there aren't these, you know, fronts and people flipping right away. I understand that some individuals, you know, and I agree, are being unburdenedly, or, you know, this is a burden on them financially, but we've got to think about our people and our community as a whole and not specific individuals. This is bigger than that. This is billions and billions of dollars of an industry. We don't have to hold this up for years. So that's a false narrative. Like I said, we can do it in weeks. There are certain things we can put in the zoning codes to make sure that what we see in the city of Chicago as social equity is really social equity. So I truly urge my colleagues to reconsider this today and don't fall for the false narrative that we've got to wait and we're going to hold people up for years and days and weeks and what have you. We could do this overnight, literally. So please reconsider this. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's get this right, because this is a consideration today that will affect us for years and years to come, and our communities for years to come, in the dollars that amount to billions. So please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman King. The chair recognizes Alderman Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam President. I also didn't plan on speaking on this one, but I think I wanted to provide a little context. We definitely could have been better served by Springfield as far as it came to cannabis. We could have decriminalized and made it to the point where anyone who was selling cannabis would not be held and could actually start their own businesses. But that is not the route Springfield chose to take. They chose to go for legalization, which by nature limits the ability of people who are able to sell cannabis. That does ultimately leave it to only folks who have enough capital to actually start a business would be able to move. So when it comes to people applying for the licenses, when it comes to those, whether they be social equity or not, they do have to have the amount of capital to provide for product, to provide for security, to be able to find a place to move forward on. And that restricts the amount of people that we're talking about who have been impacted by the war on drugs. It leaves it to only people who can afford to actually set up businesses. And that became a problem. When we talked about legalization on January 1st, there was to be a disparity study to show the disparity amongst those who said they were social equity and those that weren't, and those who didn't even apply for social equity, to show where we would be at. Regretfully, that did not occur. So yeah, Springfield could definitely do a lot to address this. I think
some of the problem we see now is those who are social equity applicants who are clearly speaking to people want to be able to start their businesses. And what we have here in this ordinance is a compromise because a lot of the social equity owners wanted more access to be able to set up shop. But there are a lot of members of this council who wanted to prohibit it because they were concerned about what neighborhoods they would be in and what kind of vices associated with cannabis. So yeah, we talk about being able to open up businesses and being able to open up cannabis for social equity while also restricting them from the ability to do so by not providing places where they can go. So when we talk about those who would sell their licenses, it's because the process is not moving forward. And if they have to wait because they don't have the amount of capital that wealthy white owners would have, they have to ultimately sell those licenses to be able to move forward because they're just holding it and they don't have the money to actually withstand the whole process and zoning to get it passed. So it is a difficult conversation to have. I understand why our members have different views upon it, but if you're really about more cannabis being set up, show it when it comes to people coming to apply in your actual wards, because that's not what's occurring. So I would ask for our members to think about that and to really move us forward. I would ask Springfield to move potentially towards decriminalization, but definitely to open it up so more people who don't have the capital up front, who aren't wealthy to start off with, can actually move forward and start the kind of wealth we want for our Black and brown communities. Because doing this just with social equity applicants who can afford to apply and move in the process doesn't cut it. Thank you so much.
Vasquez, the chair recognizes Alderman Riley.
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't planning on speaking today either, but after the comments made by Alderman Urban and Alderman Burnett, I wanted to first compliment them for, I think, accurately framing what we're dealing with here today. I think everyone agrees that there are inherent flaws in the state law when it comes to social equity. As we debated this issue in committee and in work groups, no one disputed that fact. But unfortunately, the remedy is not here. The remedy is in Springfield. And this issue that's been brought up during debate today about the sky is falling, no member of the city council is pushing that narrative. And last I checked, neither is the administration, neither is the mayor. I'm hearing that narrative from, ironically, the social equity applicants that I've been starting to meet with who are eager to open up stores in and around downtown Chicago. They have been waiting and waiting and waiting. And as Alderman Burnett mentioned, these licenses are very, very expensive. And every month that goes by costs these folks lots of money. And so is this a perfect ordinance? No. Are we in the process of drafting the 10 Commandments and chiseling this into stone? No. We can always come back and revisit this ordinance and make tweaks as necessary. But there is a group of people out there who cannot wait any longer. I've heard from them myself. I think many of you have too. Ironically, it's the social equity applicants. And so I would say, if we want to really remedy the concern that I think we all agree exists about minority applicants winning these licenses and then quickly flipping them for a profit, and then you lose the equity in that license, well, that's a Springfield solution that we should seek. And yes, we don't have our own direct vote in the state legislature, but each of us have multiple state representatives and state senators who represent our respective wards. And this would be the time to leverage those relationships, especially as they're heading into the fall veto session. There is a way to fix this. But the way you fix it is not by further holding up social equity applicants who have been patiently waiting to try and get into this market. And ironically, by casting a symbolic vote against this ordinance because you don't like what happened in Springfield, a few folks benefit from that. The incumbent cannabis companies that are currently open today, they benefit from that delay. Every month that goes by, there's more money in their pocket and one less dollar in the pocket of a social equity applicant. Another group benefits, the suburbs. If these folks have to wait too long on Chicago, they'll have no choice but to go and locate in the suburbs. And what happens to all that lucrative revenue that we're seeing? Unprecedented, record-setting amounts of revenue month over month over month. We want to send that across the border. We've got major fiscal issues in this city. We're going to hear a little bit about that later from our mayor. Just remember, Every dollar we find in revenue from cannabis is one less dollar we have to go and ask people to pay on their property taxes. So we have a real interest as a city in this industry doing well. And thank God this next draft of folks coming into the industry are social equity applicants. I want them to have the same prime locations the incumbents have today. And I'd like them to be all over downtown. I want them all to do really, really well and pay their taxes. And so I think this is a responsible compromise. The mayor and I have had differing opinions on what the exclusion zone should look like. I think this is a fair, good faith compromise. And I'm committed to working with all of you to make future changes to this ordinance and others when it comes to cannabis in Chicago. And I believe that we do need to make some more changes to the state law in Springfield, not just related to social equity, but also things like consumption on premise licenses. Our goal here is to make millions of dollars in revenue off of tourists that come to Chicago and while they're here, purchase cannabis products. Yet today, it's virtually impossible for these tourists to consume it legally in the state of Illinois. Can't smoke it in a hotel, can't smoke it in a park. We're going to do this stuff. So we got to figure out some more of this too, because I think there's a lot of revenue upside here for Chicago. Denver should not be the cannabis tourism capital of the world. Chicago should be. We're a far more exciting city. I love Denver, but we have a lot more to do here. We're in the middle of the country, literally. We should capitalize on this. So please, let's not hold up our social equity applicants any longer. We can always make changes as we go, but they are desperate to get into this industry based on the queue of meetings that I've had, and I know Alderman Burnett's been having. These folks really want to be here. Let's get them to work, and let's get that revenue moving. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Alderman Riley. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Sadlowski Garza.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I too, I want to echo everything that Chairman Riley just said, but I also need to say that myself, Clerk Valencia, Chairman Scott, all sit on the R3 board. And as of today, right now for 2021, we have made sure that board consists of many people of color, many different races, ethnicities, ex-offenders. As of today, right now, as we speak, $35 million in revenue in tax sales has gone back to communities of color for violence prevention and programs that in communities that have been affected by the war on drugs. So holding this thing up is really going to affect this program, and we need more of that money to go back to our communities. We sit there and we make sure, City Council, there's 3 of us on this board that make sure that it goes back to the right communities that need that money for violence prevention. And all of us can agree that we need way more than $35 million to do that. So I am in support of getting this through today because there's a lot more money that needs to be made and put into programs that can help us. So please consider a yes vote.
Thank you, Alderman Garza. The chair recognizes Alderman Cardenas.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm in agreement, obviously, with my colleagues. And I always enjoy Jason Urban getting to the nuts and bolts of, what this is about. It is what it is. It was done in Springfield. I don't think it was great legislation, to be honest with you. I know they say they're proud of it. You can't be proud of the stuff they put down here and think this is great. We're doing the most we can with this stuff, but I think the compromise is between the B3s and the C1s. We're in the middle of redistricting. So it's going to be incumbent upon each one of us to do our own land use planning internally and carve out what you think is right for your community and see how folks are going to participate and all that stuff. But it's a zoning issue. I do have my issues with CBA, which is, I think we're already using CBA. I think it's got to come back to communities and more of a zoning decision that all of us can make. But at the end of the day, we can't stop. We got to move the city forward, and it's incumbent upon us to make those decisions. But it doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean we stop. I don't stop. I've started looking at land use and looking at different areas that I think I want changed. Our community wants changed. And that's what we're doing right now. I encourage you to do the same thing. Should it be a C district? Should it be a C2? Should it be those? That's on you. So I think we can do both things. We can pass this today and then get working on land use in each of the wards, look at what's being looked in your map redistricting and see if the exclusion zones, for example, in 42 and also second ward and third and fourth are all down in the loop, or 27, you know, are there going to be any changes, significant changes that makes you think differently? That's what the thinking cap is all about. But I wouldn't get scared on this stuff. I mean, obviously, we should have been done better in Springfield, but that's another debate. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Alderman Cardenas. Any other member of the body who wishes to speak on this matter? Alderman Moore?
Just for clarification, Madam President, and the substitute was just passed out. Did anything change in this? Nothing changed, so we still just C1? Because I thought I heard something different from Alderman Cardenas.
No, I'm looking at Alderman Hunter Tunney. Do you want to address that issue?
The substitute ordinance before you was substituted in the committee. This was the DNP ordinance and no changes.
Just want to be clear. Thank you.
Any other members of the body who wish to speak? I would like to just address this matter briefly. No one believes that Springfield has delivered a perfect statute. Far from it. There are significant challenges that need to continue to be addressed. But as hopefully most of you know, what's left to municipalities like the city of Chicago are two things. Yes or no. Do you want it or do you not? And if you do, you can address it through zoning. We cannot change things like that I would like to change. Our cut of the tax revenue. This is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, and municipalities like Chicago are getting pennies on the dollar. We should change that. We cannot change the definition of who is social equity, much as I would like to. I have great concerns and frankly take great offense for the way in which that definition has been defined, that if you simply hire folks at a lower threshold and get to 50% of your workforce, even though the equity is owned by somebody else, magically your social equity. That's wrong, and that definition should absolutely be changed. But the place to do that is not the floor of the city council. It's in the halls of Springfield, at the General Assembly. That's where 3 legislative sessions ago, before some of us were even in office, that's where this should have started. And then following year and the following year. But what we have right now, as some have alluded to, the guys, and they are almost uniformly all guys, who are already in business for medical marijuana, were given a year head start that's now turned into almost a 3-year head start. And the question of people of color, well, I don't know where folks are looking, but the people who have been knocking on my door, who've been talking to me, are uniformly people of color. And Alderman Burnett is right. This is a very expensive business to get into, which is why I will keep pushing, hopefully joined by members of the city council, to allow the city of Chicago to open up a cooperative so we can let people buy in to the business, get expertise at a lower cost than what is out there now. But people of color absolutely are social equity applicants and do stand to benefit. But they won't benefit if we delay, because the way that the state legislation is written is you have to identify your spot as part of your license and application. And so if we wait, as Alderman Riley, I think, has aptly said, there are people who benefit. It's none of the people that look like me. It's the incumbents and it's the suburbs, because people will go to a place where they can actually do business. And this is a larger issue for this body that I know we have to continually wrestle with. If we make it impossible for people to do business in the city of Chicago, they are going to move. Alderman Curtis knows this. Alderman Quinn knows this. The folks who are on the borders. If we have business, doing business in the city of Chicago so onerous by laws, taxes, and other things, they're going to move across the border to the suburbs, as unfortunately they're doing with way too many instances. So the time is now. And the frauds, there's always frauds in everything it does. There's always somebody who's trying to work the angles. But that's why, if you know of one, tell it to the state regulators, because they've got to go through a rigorous licensing process to be finally certified to open up these businesses. But our role is yes or no. We voted yes. Our role is zoning, and that's what's before us today. Let's open up opportunities in some of the most lucrative spots. And Alderman Riley and I and my team have been working along with others to make sure that we're doing this the right way, that we're creating real opportunity in some of the most lucrative spots in the city. So I would urge the body to vote yes. Chairman Tunney, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know a lot has been said on this issue. Just two things I just wanted to, that were not said. This process is at least 3 years old in my zoning committee. We were allowed up to 50 licensees in Chicago, and currently there are 7. So we have severely limited over the past 3 years until Springfield gets it right. Springfield came back with version number 2, better, but not obviously addressing the ills of Black and brown ownership. And I think that's still, my committee is welcome to get any ordinances, introductions in regards to how we can do this legally. But that being said, this still is an incremental approach. The ordinance was introduced, allowed for expansion into the B zones and C zones. At this point, we are not allowing the B zones to be allowed. And that's a severe restriction, to be honest with you. When we did the map, it was, this is a severe limitation. Again, working with Brendan and the downtown folks, we narrowed that because most of the people want to be downtown where the so-called money is, and whether it's tourists or wealth, they wanted to make sure that they had a chance to be downtown where the action is. So the other thing that Will, and I want to thank him for his patience and his effort working with my committee. You know, each license, new license or the current ones are projecting $500,000 a year in tax revenue annually. So we have lost out quite a bit in the last 3 years. And I think that this incremental approach is where we need to be today. And I urge your positive vote on this and to continue to work with the members of all the council on how we can get it better. But as the mayor said, Springfield controls the licensing. We've got to do our work down there. But I'm happy to entertain any new ordinances about how we can define social equity better and get Black and brown ownership in these, whether it's a common cannabis dispensary like you mentioned, Mayor, or just how do we develop young entrepreneurs and people of color so they can actually own these dispensaries. So I'm going to renew my motion for a roll call vote on this. Mayor?
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman LaSpada.
Aye.
Alderman LaSpada is an aye. Alderman Hopkins. Alderman Dow. Alderman Dow is an aye. Alderman King.
No.
Alderman King is a no. Alderman Hairston. Alderman Hairston is an aye. Alderman Sawyer.
Aye.
Alderman Sawyer is an aye. Alderman Mitchell.
Aye.
Alderman Mitchell is an aye. Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderman Harris is an aye. Alderman Beal.
Nope.
Alderman Beal is a no. Alderman Slosky Garza.
Aye.
Slosky Garza is an aye. Alderman Thompson.
No.
Alderman Thompson is a no. Alderman Cardenas.
Aye.
Alderman Cardenas is an aye. Alderman Quinn.
No.
Alderman Quinn is a no. Alderman Burke.
No.
Alderman Burke is a no. Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Lopez is a no. Alderman Coleman.
Aye.
Alderman Coleman is an aye. Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Moore is an aye. Alderman Curtis.
Aye.
Alderman Curtis is an aye. Alderman O'Shea.
Aye.
Alderman O'Shea is an aye. Alderman Taylor. Alderman Brookins. Alderman Rodriguez.
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez is an aye. Alderman Tabarez. Alderman Tabarez is a no. Alderman Scott.
Aye.
Alderman Scott is an aye. Alderman Cicho Lopez. Alderman Cicho Lopez is a no. Alderman Maldonado.
No.
Alderman Maldonado is a no. Alderman Burnett.
Aye.
Alderman Burnett is an aye. Alderman Irvin.
Aye.
Alderman Irvin is an aye. Alderman Talaferro. Alderman Talaferro is an aye. Alderman Raboyes.
Aye.
Alderman Raboyes is an aye. Alderman Cardona. Alderman Cardona is an aye. Alderman Wagaspack.
Aye.
Alderman Wagaspack is an aye. Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez.
No.
Rodriguez Sanchez is a no. Alderman Austin.
Aye.
Alderman Austin is an aye. Alderman Ramirez Rosa.
No.
Mayor Stroh says a no. Alderman Villegas.
Aye.
Alderman Villegas is an aye. Alderman Mitz.
Aye.
Alderman Mitz is an aye. Alderman Spacado.
Nick Spacado is an aye.
Alderman Spacado is an aye. Alderman Nugent.
Aye.
Alderman Nugent is an aye. Alderman Vasquez.
Aye.
Alderman Vasquez is an aye. Alderman Napolitano.
No.
Napolitano is a no. Alderman Riley.
Aye.
Alderman Riley is an aye. Alderman Smith.
Aye.
Alderman Smith is an aye. Alderman Tunney.
Aye.
Alderman Tunney is an aye. Alderman Gardner.
No.
Alderman Gardner is a no. Alderman Kappelman.
Aye.
Alderman Kappelman is an aye. Alderman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Martin is an aye. Alderman Osterman.
Aye.
Alderman Osterman is an aye. Alderman Haddon. Alderman Silverstein. Aye. Alderman Silverstein is an aye.
The ayes are 33, the nays are 13. The matter passes. Alderman Mitchell on the motion for reconsideration.
Madam President, motion to reconsider the vote.
All those in favor of the motion for reconsideration signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. No. The motion for reconsideration fails. Chairman Tunney, back to you.
Madam Mayor, that concludes my report.
Alderman Mitchell, is there any other unfinished business?
Madam President, I'm not aware of any other unfinished business.
Next up, miscellaneous business. Alderman Mitchell.
Madam President, I'm not aware of any miscellaneous business.
The date and time of the next meeting?
I've handed up an ordinance to the clerk setting the date and time of the next meeting.
Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Chicago, Section 1, that the next regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Chicago shall be held on Thursday, October 14, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. in the City Council chamber on the second floor in City Hall, 121 North LaSalle Street, Chicago, Illinois. If prior to then there is a determination that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent due to COVID-19 in accordance with Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, the next regular meeting of the City Council may be conducted by video conference in accordance with applicable law. Any such determination will be posted on the City Clerk's website along with amended meeting agenda indicating the meeting will be conducted by video conference by 10 a.m. on Tuesday, October 12, 2021. This ordinance shall be in effect and be enforced from here and after its passage.
There are no objections, so ordered. The chair recognizes Alderman Burke.
Madam President, I ask the clerk reflect me as being present for the meeting. I came in late.
So reflected, sir. Alderman Mitchell, the omnibus.
Madam President, I move that the matters in the omnibus be passed by the affirmative vote of the members present for the roll call to determine quorum.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Alderman Thompson on the motion for reconsideration.
Thank you, Madam. I move that we reconsider the last vote.
All those in favor of the motion for reconsideration signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. The nays have it. The motion for reconsideration fails. The chair recognizes Alderman Dow.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to suspend the rules for the delivery of the mayor's budget address and consideration of an associated resolution following the budget address. I see that the copies of your remarks, Madam Chair, are being handed out to the council.
Hearing no objection, the rules will be suspended to allow for the budget address at this regular city council meeting. Okay. I want to welcome Madam Treasurer. I want to welcome the First Lady. There are many truths about the city that I know. I know these truths from traveling the neighborhoods, walking the streets, and seeing and hearing from residents firsthand. Whether on the north side in neighborhoods like Belmont Cragen or Portage Park, or the lower southeast side in Hegwich or East Chicago, the west side in East or West Garfield Park, Austin, North Lawndale, downtown in the Loop or Streeterville, or on the southwest side in Pilsen or Little Village, in neighborhoods on the south side spanning from Hyde Park to Woodlawn to South Shore to Roseland, Inglewood, and so many neighborhoods in between. I know that our people, Chicagoans, are tough and resilient. Chicagoans are proud of who they are, their families, and their heritage. Whether that history began here in this city or our country, or some distant land. And no one should ever doubt our grit and determination. I also know that in this particular time, there are also other inescapable truths. Our people are hurting and in need of continued support and healing. A recent survey found 27% of Chicago adults lost health care during the pandemic. 33% of employed adults had reduced hours or lost pay. 28% of Chicagoans experienced food insecurity during the pandemic, and that percentage for Black and brown adults was far, far worse. And 17% of adult Chicagoans reported experiencing severe psychological distress during the pandemic, with significant numbers of adults feeling isolated, nervous, and hopeless. Yes, this most recent chapter of our Chicago history has been brutal, marked by too many stories of hardship, pain, and even death. Ushered in by the insidious reach of a global pandemic, first of its kind in 100 years, which brought with it a pandemic-sized economic meltdown, civic unrest, and unacceptable levels of violence. But we must be honest and recognize that the fault lines revealed during the pandemic were actually decades in the making, born of persistent, intentional acts dating back to the earliest days of our union and compounded and refined over time. Life expectancy gaps of 15 years or more between Black and white people in this city did not happen by chance. Lack of access to high quality, affordable health care, which spawned the underlying medical vulnerabilities exposed and exploited during the pandemic, was not an accident of history. Lack of opportunity in jobs and education is not the fault of those victimized, and certainly not the natural order of things. Similarly, gender-based violence that has escalated to epidemic proportions in these last few years are the result of us turning away from that cold reality that violence at home spills into the streets as traumatized and victimized children of today can be tomorrow's violent adults. Rampant, unchecked opioid and heroin use that leaves some area of our city looking like a scene from The Walking Dead. Don't tell me that that just rose up organically. There's a long list, which is origins and roots traceable to systemic racism, failure to invest in people and places, and none of this has happened by accident. They are two sides of the same coin and designed and forged to benefit some off the backs of others. This is intentional and must be changed. The costs have been and continue to be unacceptably high. The pre-pandemic murmurs of anger and frustration, of pain and suffering that have trapped too many in despair and denied generations the ability to realize their God-given potential. Those murmurs, my friends, are now a loud chorus, a chorus that demands our attention. Yes, that chorus sometimes sounds discordant notes, but in the yearning for something different, something better, those uplifted voices are also singing a sweet song of hope about the future and what is possible if we listen to the will of the people. A consistent refrain that I have heard is that we must be equally intentional in righting these historic wrongs. First and foremost, we must be intentional on behalf of our children. We must show up for our children from cradle to graduation so that they are set up for success in their lives' journeys, regardless of the circumstances into which they are born. We must be intentional on the side of our vulnerable residents, seniors, the homeless, the addicted, the jobless. As we have enough riches in this city to extend a hand to our brothers and sisters, our neighbors who need us. We must also be intentionally on the side of our working families. The daily struggle of so many need not be a given. It's a trap that saps people of their ability to lift their heads high to feel like their work has actual value. Saying that we believe in the dignity of work is meaningless if that work cannot sustain a life. And it is in that environment, and a work environment that is patently unfair to the workers. We must do more for our working families. And we must keep working intentionally and persistently to eradicate poverty and create economic opportunities for people to sustain a good life and pass on wealth to the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, in this historic moment where we stand on the precipice of our new normal, the destiny that we will create for ourselves and future generations, we must commit ourselves to being intentional, but in a very different way than the past. Our new intentionality must include forging a new pact with each other and the people we serve. As leaders, we must commit to a new set of truths, starting with the truth that equity and inclusion must be at the center of all of our work. And that in our post-pandemic recovery, no one, not anyone, can be left behind. But in order for these truths to be self-evident, to become an intrinsic part of our destiny, so that we can make real our new declaration of truth and liberation, we must find common ground. We must be united in our path forward. Unity, an obvious point, but often difficult to achieve, particularly in these times. Scripture provides valuable lessons and solutions. The Old Testament tells us that Moses gathered the Israelites together before they finally reached the Promised Land after a 40-year set of grueling trials. Their struggles seem not unlike what we have endured over these last 18 months: hunger, plagues, and death. Moses told the assembled masses that they were doomed to repeat this harrowing test until a new generation arose, one that was united through their faith in God and shared belief that they could attain the Promised Land. Should they remain united in their faith, as Moses said, they would be blessed in a multitude of ways. Should they falter in their faith, however, they would be doomed to repeat the plagues, the famines, and the suffering of their forefathers. Moses knew that while his people were weary, they were ready to reach their end of days and step into the light of the Promised Land, a reality not unlike the one that we are living in right now. We have no Moses, but we do have each other. And we have the lessons of history from those biblical times to the present. Our people need us. And importantly, we have an obligation to them, to ourselves, and to future generations to seize with gusto the opportunities that this moment presents, to learn the lessons of history and not to repeat the mistakes of the past. But we must do it together. We are always better together, always stronger when we are united and not divided. Example after example throughout our history and in recent times tells us loud and clear that when we unite to take on the challenges of the day, we succeed beyond all expectations. On the eve of the 150th anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, let's match and exceed the determination of our ancestors who literally rebuilt this city out of the charred ashes and laid the foundation for the great global city that we are today. To build a better city, we must do more to invest in our people, our families, our neighborhoods, foundational, transformative investments. As you will see and hear, we mean to take big, bold, audacious steps to the benefit of our residents of today and to build bridges to the future. That's what we are proposing to you, members of the City Council and our residents. We are heeding the advice of the great planner and builder, Daniel Burton. We are making no small plans. Our first step in this time of lost revenues is closing our gaps in lost revenue for 2021 and addressing the deficit for 2022. As I announced last month with the release of the city's budget forecast, the gap for 2022 budget was $733 million. Since then, we have been working to close this gap in a way that brings our city forward to fully recover. And we propose to do this without any new taxes, no reduction in city services, and no layoffs. You can clap for that. And the foundation for this good news was set with the hard but necessary choices of last year's budget. I want to take a moment to acknowledge and personally thank the 29 of you who voted yes on the 2021 budget and set all of us up for success by agreeing to a set of structural changes that will endure from year to year. Thanks to your hard work last year, all of us and our residents and our taxpayers in particular have more predictability and stability, and as a result, a better fiscal future. And what is the state of our economy? I'm happy to report that our economy is definitely on the mend. To date, just this year, over 130 companies have made pro-Chicago decisions, with either 56 new locations or 71 expansions. Our hotels are filling. Our conventions and large group meetings are definitely on the rise, and our unemployment rate is dropping. And there is a buzz of hope and optimism that is sweeping out the dark cloud of gloom that has lingered for far too long. I am equally happy to report that while we still suffered revenue losses in 2021, the flip side is that we've seen better than expected revenues of approximately $210 million in 2021, which helps us address a portion of our revenue losses. To further close these gaps and craft a balanced budget, we will leverage $298.2 million from savings and efficiency, which represents $67.8 million from personnel and healthcare savings, $230.4 million in fiscal management recovery initiatives, which includes $20 million of refinancing savings and $25 million in sweeping agent counts, and $491.1 million of increased revenues, which includes $385 million of American Rescue Plan funding, $24.9 million in TIF surplus, and $81.2 million in new property growth and improved revenue projections. This gap closure strategy builds on and is a result of a number of accomplishments we've racked up on our journey towards structural balance. Over the last 3 years, we've identified over $1 billion in structural solutions. And we did not deplete our revenues. We completely avoided massive layoffs. And in 2022, with the budget we are proposing, we will climb our pension ramp, which means that for the first time in city history, all 4 pension funds will be paid on an actuarially determined basis. And Madam Treasurer, you know this is huge. And also in 2022, we will be climbing yet another ramp, the scoop and toss ramp. This means that annually, we will be paying off between $225 and $325 million in debt a year. As a result of climbing this ramp, we will be able to make investments that will reap economic and social benefits, as well as make Chicago a better place to live, rather than just rolling over credit card payments and building up a mountain of debt. Most of these accomplishments occurred in the middle of a global pandemic. Let's not forget that. And as a result of these accomplishments, we expect to reach structural balance by 2023, which bodes especially well for our prosperous post-pandemic recovery. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our budget director, our CFO, and our comptroller. These ladies have worked their tails off for several years, and they deserve our thanks. Now let's get to the good part. As I have said many times, budgets are not just a math problem. They are value statements. And this time, our value statements must be bold, definitive, and transformative. Our ultimate goal with this recovery and resiliency budget is to recover and develop Chicago into a safer, stronger, and more prosperous city in which people can take root in, raise a family, build a business, and make a better lives for themselves. And we will know we've accomplished this ultimate goal when we've created Chicago where all of our communities feel safe and protected from violence, including the gang-related and often retaliatory violence we are experiencing in our streets and the gender-based violence that we see in our homes across the city, where less young people are out of school or out of work, and more are connected to opportunity and the ability to make and build a sustainable life, where residents have increased access to education, affordable housing, a stable and good paying job, high quality healthcare, food security, and mental health supports they need to heal from individual and collective trauma. And where vacant lots have been transformed into spaces for leisure, living, and commerce. To get to this particular promised land, this budget proposes the specific uses for the $1.9 billion in American Rescue Plan funding and an additional $660 million in enhancements to the Chicago Works capital plan to develop and deepen investments, create a new series of ones, and to build out the infrastructure we need to maintain ourselves for generations to come. In other words, we must think about these investments as a commitment to our immediate and most urgent needs while building bridges to the future that is just over the horizon. Details about each of these investments can be found in the budget book, but I want to highlight a few in particular. Let's talk about community safety. I know that community safety and thriving communities are at the top of minds of all of you and our residents wherever they live in Chicago. That's why this budget proposes over $400 million in investments across various initiatives to not only enhance community safety, but bolster our city, our safety, the comprehensive violence reduction plan we released back in October 2020. These very specific community safety investments include $45 million for community and safety initiatives, including violence intervention programming and supports for community groups, $20 million for youth intervention programs like the SCAN program, which provides wraparound supports and case management for justice-involved youth, $10 million for a youth deflection and diversion program, and the expansion of the officer wellness program for the Chicago Police Department so our incredibly hardworking police officers have the resources they need to recover and heal from the stress and trauma they also experience every day. Too often, when we talk about community violence, we forget the victims. We know of them, but they are more than just crime statistics. Their lives are deeply impacted by the violence. And once it comes to their doorstep, it lives on in some form forever. This is particularly true of child victims, like 4-year-old Michael Moultrie Jr., known by his family as MJ. We must recommit ourselves to better protecting our residents from violence, particularly our children. Let's say their names and never forget that their lives, no matter how brief, had meaning and purpose because they are all God's children and they are all loved. Victims and witnesses will benefit from a number of investments that we are making, including mental health, housing, and other programming. But this year, we propose a first of its kind dedicated investment for victim support of $10 million. Community safety must also encompass giving returning residents a way to a life of stability and safety in the legitimate economy. Every year, thousands of individuals, mostly men from the South and the West Sides, come home from prisons and jails all over Illinois. Having paid their debt, we have a responsibility to support their successful reentry to our neighborhoods. Right now, far too few are able to completely or even partially turn their lives around. That's why, in addition to investing $10 million in a reentry workforce program to expand workforce training opportunities for formerly incarcerated individuals, to retain employment and stabilization services, we also will release a roadmap entitled A Roadmap for a Second Chance City later this month, with key recommendations for actions the city and our partners across sectors must take to reduce barriers to healthcare, housing, and economic mobility of returning residents. And in 2022, with this budget, we also propose to create a director of reentry role within the mayor's office to lead the charge of this work. We cannot talk about the violence happening in our communities and on our streets without also addressing the scourge of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a public health crisis, and it is at its core a component to our violence reduction plan and anti-poverty agenda. It's a reason that this budget also proposes $35 million in new and existing investments to provide assistance to those experiencing gender-based violence, including emergency funds, legal assistance, mental health resources, and other coordination services. Community safety, of course, extends beyond violence prevention efforts. Deep and lasting community safety also depends on the mental health and well-being of our communities. Access to quality, affordable mental health care is vital to residents' ability to recover from this pandemic. This is why we made historic investments in the 2020 and 2021 budgets, tripling that of 2019's. And for fiscal year 2022, we propose to add another $52 million to those investments. The data speaks for itself. Between January 1st and June 30th of just this year, over 16,000 residents have received mental health services through trauma-informed centers of care, a 300% increase when compared to the total number of persons served by the city in 2019. We are able to serve more people because we have invested in a broader array of community-based care. One resident whose life has changed thanks to the mental health support that they receive is a young woman who we'll call Julia, a former high schooler from a little village. When she had missed multiple classes and her grades dropped dramatically, she was referred to therapy with a therapist from Alternatives, Inc., an organization funded through CDPH as part of the framework for mental health equity. Now, Alternatives has long been a leader in providing mental health services for youth that provides school-based services in high-need communities. In her sessions, Julia revealed that she had been experiencing passive suicidal ideation, self-harm behaviors, disordered eating, and other symptoms of depression that made it difficult for her to manage her daily responsibilities, including finishing her senior year of high school and maintaining her job to support her family. Through therapy, however, Julia learned and practiced coping skills, developed tools for implementing mindfulness, and began managing her intrusive thoughts, ultimately allowing her to develop a more nurturing inner voice. As a result of her hard work and the care that she received from Alternatives, Julia was able to successfully graduate from high school. Upon graduation, she transferred to CDPH's Trauma-Informed Centers of Care project to make more progress on her treatment goals and to keep up with therapy. I'm happy to share that she has since started college and been able to build her confidence in working towards her long-term goal of becoming an early childhood educator, and has not self-harmed or felt unable to get out of bed in the last several months. We have the opportunity to generate more success stories like Julia's, And that's why this budget proposes a total of $52 million in additional investments in mental health. This includes investments in a new health equity initiative, which will strengthen mental health care citywide through things like trauma-informed centers of care, 911 alternative response and crisis assistance response and engagement, mobile team-based care to increase access to care in underserved areas, and supports for a new sobering center to enhance healthcare outcomes by providing an alternative to emergency rooms in jails for publicly intoxicated individuals. Specialized services as early childhood mental health and mental health services for children with developmental disabilities, and residential or intensive outpatient treatment for persons co-occurring mental health, recurring mental health and substance abuse disorders. We can do this and get it done. Now, next, in order for our residents to live in safe, healthy, and vibrant communities, affordable, stable housing is key. To further strengthen our social safety net for residents with housing needs, this budget proposes $240 million in additional investments in affordable housing initiatives. And I want to thank Commissioner Navarro of Housing and Commissioner Cox, who have both been working tirelessly, along with Tracy Scott, the CEO of CHA, to make sure that we are moving forward to shrink our affordable housing gap. This investment is intended to create more affordable units. Finding a safe and affordable place to call home and raise a family shouldn't have to be an elusive pipe dream. However, it is for far too many of our residents. The lack of affordable housing, as well as the inability of our residents to afford safe, high-quality housing, are symptoms of systemic inequity. This investment will address this need in a variety of ways, most importantly, by creating and upgrading more than 4,000 affordable housing units for residents to raise their families and build their lives in. An emphasis on families. Anyone who's been along this journey knows there are too few opportunities for family units so that families can stay in their long-term neighborhoods. We have to keep working to reverse that trend and make sure that there's no exodus of families from the city of Chicago, and we mean to do just that. In addition, this investment also includes $30 million to support existing homeowners to stay in their homes in transitioning neighborhoods and to restore blighted properties, $11 million to provide direct home buyer assistance and expand opportunities for home ownership through land preparation, $75 million for affordable housing developers to create mixed-use developments, and $60 million to address home hazards such as lead-based paint. Many of the investments that we propose are about building on the future, but we know that people need help right now. So part of this proposed budget, we seek authorization from the City Council to spend $71 million in targeted financial and legal assistance for underserved residents, such as undocumented residents, domestic workers, and small community-based nonprofits providing safety net services. And notably, we also propose creating a first of its kind pilot in Chicago of a monthly cash assistance program for hard-hit, low-income households in need of additional stability, as well as expand legal assistance programs through the Legal Protection Fund and Community Justice Initiative. And let me pause for a moment. This cash benefit plan for our residents, if approved, will be the largest in the history of the United States. To continue supporting our economic recovery, we will continue to invest in funding in Invest Southwest, our signature economic development program, the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, and other business catalyst programs. For Invest Southwest specifically, we have seen over $300 million in public sector investments, our and your money, and a complementary set of over $400 million from the private and philanthropic sector. In 2022, we will be entering year 2 of our capital plan. created with the budget for this year. And we've already seen great progress. Recently, CDOT celebrated an important milestone, having repaved 100 miles of roads as part of their work with the capital plan. And as of this summer, this is one of my favorites, 4,563 trees have been planted. And we were able to cut the ribbon to the completed Irving Park Road Bridge and Underbridge project, which completes the 312 River Run and links Clark, California, and Horner Parks. We are also constantly seeking ways to improve the vibrancy of our commercial corridors, to provide jobs and opportunity for growth and entrepreneurship for our residents, and to beautify our neighborhoods. To build on these efforts, we will invest a total of $166 million in new and existing community development efforts. This includes $66 million for acquisition rehab to assist in identifying and restoring troubled or abandoned homes and spur community investments. You can clap for that, Emma. $67 million to revitalize commercial corridors through small business supports, activation of vacant storefronts, and investments to develop community-driven local amenities. $87 million to turn vacant lots into opportunities. This will also streamline the environmental review of all 10,000 city-owned vacant lots and put 4,000 of them into active use, including cleaning up, transferring ownership of 3,000 lots to local residents, and preparing another 1,000 to be developed as affordable homes. Making this the largest lots initiative in City of Chicago history, structured to reduce crime and vandalism and increase community ownership and well-being. We talk about vacant lots a lot, and now we're going to do more to make that changes a reality. A community wealth building pilot, which will create a new economic development program to promote local, democratic, and shared ownership and control of community assets. Pilot investments in shared equity models such as worker cooperatives, housing cooperatives, and community land trusts, giving historically disinvested in communities more accessible and sustainable pathways to build wealth in their communities. And our equitable transit-oriented development, we continue on. This will advance local housing and economic recovery goals by supporting community-driven development near transit for healthy, walkable, affordable, and accessible communities. And thanks again to all the advocates who have helped us on this journey. In addition to these investments that I've laid out, we have to have a safe and affordable, I think we're on the wrong one. We have to have a safe and affordable place to call home. Our residents need to have access to good, paying, and sustainable jobs. That's my mistake, not yours. As a result, I am proud to report that this budget will create and support over 40,000 new jobs, with over 30,000 jobs marked off as potential employment opportunities for our young people. Importantly, this budget also reflects significant progress on our ongoing fines and fees strategy. Included in this budget is the next phase of this critical reform, which is three key elements: debt forgiveness, income-based ticket cost, and fix-it tickets. And let me explain. First, we're giving people the opportunity to a pathway to compliance. For low-income individuals who prove that they don't have the ability to pay off their tickets, they will have the opportunity to have their pay off their most recent tickets, but have the history of debt forgiven forever. Second, if we know that their income is low enough to qualify for the program, we'll adjust the ticket costs themselves so that it's more proportionate to their income by cutting it to 50%. This is modeled off of our utility billing relief program, which reduces water rates by 50% for low-income homeowners. And finally, for everyone, we know that sometimes what we need is simply an opportunity to fix the mistake. So for compliance tickets, such as city stickers, our license plate expiration tickets. Everyone will have one opportunity to fix their violation by simply buying the sticker they need and having the ticket forgiven. These reforms were developed as part of Chicago's work with cities and counties for fine and fee justice, with the help of the Fines and Fees Justice Center, with the help of our clerk, city clerk, Anna Valencia, and the Fines and Fees Collaborative, and I am grateful for their support on this effort. More work to come. Now, we're all aware that the pandemic took a particularly devastating toll on our arts and culture industry. Shows were canceled, theater doors and music venues were closed. Artists and musicians lost work and were at financial risk. And the arts and culture community was compelled to adapt new ways of making and sharing their work. Revitalizing our arts and culture scene is essential. It's essential to our ability to recover from this pandemic on both an economic and a social level. The arts and culture are part of what makes us truly human. And Chicago has so many incredible, legendary venues, museums, and activations across our city for residents to celebrate and enjoy, and our artists and our musicians are second to none. As part of our pandemic reopening plan, I was proud to join DCASE, as well as many within our arts and culture community, to launch Open Chicago to bring back festivals, live music, dance, public art shows, markets, and more, all across the city, including Millennium Park. We also launched Art 77 back in April of this year to further root the recovery of our arts and culture community at the heart of our revitalization strategy. That program leverages over $60 million in initial funding to support local arts organizations, allowing us to provide grants to artists and cultural organizations, as well as to support the creation of new public art projects. In this budget, to build on that success, we ask you to join us in investing $26 million new dollars to create 2 new initiatives to support our arts and culture community. And they are the new $20 million Artist Relief and Works Fund, which will provide targeted relief for artists and organizations not able to access other forms of federal support, such as individual artists, local museums, and other art and educational organizations. $10 million of this fund will be a dedicated revenue stream from our corporate budget to guarantee a baseline of funding for this community, which will no longer be subject to the vagaries of the hotel tax. And another $10 million will come from ARP funding. And $6 million in Together We Heal placemaking grants, which will support projects that utilize community engagement to produce cultural projects, including community-led public art installations, historical walking tours, neighborhood and educational websites, pop-up galleries, and so much more. It wasn't all that long ago, ladies and gentlemen, that we were seeing historic lows in flights, hotel occupancy, and more. Since then, tourism and many of our other industries are bouncing back stronger, and in some instances better than pre-pandemic times, but there's more to come. But let me talk about the good news. While we have a long way to go, as of July of 2021, our hotel occupancy rate was averaging 57.5%, with many weekends sold out. Over the course of this year, O'Hare and Midway saw an incredible increase in combined flights, which has dwarfed other airports at times, including JFK and LaGuardia in New York City. And our beloved convention center, McCormick Place, is also poised to make an extraordinary comeback, with a number of conventions already lined up for 2022 and beyond. We have incredible momentum. And to build on that, we will invest an additional $20 million to promote our city via marketing efforts and signature efforts. This effort will support tourism and travel to Chicago by showcasing an array of exciting and fun events all over our city, including key destinations and neighborhood hubs through marketing, media, events, and programming. It will also emphasize the story of real Chicagoans to target communication to businesses that highlight the diversity of Chicago's economy and human capital. We already have a number of new first-of-their-kind events scheduled for Chicago in 2022 that will absolutely help boost occupancy in hotels, seats at restaurants and bars, and have a ripple effect across our economy. So this investment will help accelerate that. The next key set of investments we intend to make with this budget are centered around climate resiliency and environmental justice. Setting and implementing bold, equitable climate goals are necessary at all levels of government, but especially for cities as diverse as Chicago. That's why we will invest $188 million to address the looming threat, which represents the largest one-time investment in climate mitigation, adaptation, and environmental justice priorities in the city's history. These investments will do a handful of things, including support climate-related infrastructure initiatives, which will allow us to expand trail networks, create new waste diversion programs, and more. Create energy efficient and renewable projects to advance climate justice, which will create energy investments in low and moderate income homes and city-owned buildings. Execute retrofits and renewable energy projects to cornerstone institutions like community centers and libraries to improve their long-term environmental and economic stability, and pilot an industrial community solar project, solar energy coming to Chicago, resulting in the addition of 50 net zero homes, 400 retrofitted low-income homes and units, and 30 retrofitted community centers, and 5 solar-powered libraries. And these investments will also fund neighborhood climate resiliency projects, which will expand green infrastructure, install new flood mitigation measures to benefit underserved and flood-vulnerable communities, and build 20 new resilient schoolyards on CPS property. We expect this historic investment to reap historic outcomes. For example, we will plant 75,000 new trees across the city over the next 5 years, the largest urban tree canopy program in the city's history. And speaking of trees, upgrading our parks is also vital, part of our investment strategy and the wellness of our residents. Each and every one of our residents deserves clean and beautiful green space for recreation, or to simply take a breath and enjoy nature within our urban landscape. To that end, we will invest $61 million to make neighborhood and park improvements, which will include beautification, recreation expansion, and accessibility upgrades, as well as provide updates to the city's digital services, which will represent investment in IT and digital service delivery teams to improve the effectiveness of relief programs and support programs addressing negative economic impacts exacerbated by the pandemic. This will also allow us to streamline the permitting process by creating a new enterprise system that will expedite business growth, giving permit applicants real-time status updates and allowing the city to collect on permitting revenues, and make park infrastructure improvements by investing in public broadband networks at park field houses for use by community members. There is one other proposed investment that I want to highlight. Earlier this year, I was out on the West Side, which some might say is the, thank you. When I was on the West Side, I was talking to a local pastor, and he recounted the ripple effect on loss of funding for so many community-based programs due to COVID-19 revenue losses inside and outside of city government. And talking about what had been lost over the last year, it was clear that there would always be needs that are hard to see from City Hall, even by being intentional and engaging with residents and stakeholders all over the city. To maximize the opportunities to meet those unmet needs, we propose to create a micro grant fund of $100,000 per ward, administered by the local alderman. It is intended that this $5 million fund will provide ward-specific investments that address gaps that might otherwise not be seen or met. You know this, so you can clap for that. You know this, that a good alderman has the pulse of the ward, knows the pain points of residents. And we want to further equip each of you with tools to help address your residents' needs. As I wind down, let me say that what were glimmers of hope just last year have now turned into full-blown floods of light. With this recovery and resiliency budget, we have not only had the opportunity to deepen our commitment to being good financial stewards, but also to lead our residents toward a better tomorrow. We have waited so long for this opportunity, and there are many people to thank. And while that list is far too long to thank everyone, let me highlight a few in closing. Let me start with our city workers, who've been at the front lines of our communities both before and during this crisis. We are grateful also to our partners in the labor movement who have worked with us through countless complex challenges to this crisis and continue to do so. In particular, I want to thank the leaders at the Chicago Federation of Labor, led by our friend Bob Ryder, and our great Workforce Committee Chairwoman, Susan Sadlowski Garza. You know this, that Sue has often been at the table and in the room to help solve problems and put us all back on the right track. My hat's off to you, my friend. I also want to thank our janitors and firefighters, police officers, teachers, and school staff, sanitation workers, engineers, machinists, healthcare workers, nurses and public health employees, transit workers, laborers, and many, many other tradespeople who never left their posts, who showed up every day and served their city in the most dire of circumstances. Their hard work is what makes this city function, literally, and we'd be lost without them. We also have a number of business and community leaders who have been thoroughly instrumental in economic and social revitalization of our city. And again, that list is long too, but I want to call out just a few. For starters, I want to give a shout out to Joe Mansueto, CEO of Mansueto Office. Back in December of 2019, Joe heard a speech that I gave at the Economic Club, which issued a challenge to the business community to invest in communities where opportunity doesn't naturally come. And Joe did just that. He acted and would later invest in the terminal in West Humboldt Park. You can clap for that, Emma. It's coming to you. The terminal leverages an impressive $40 to $50 million in investment, which will redevelop industrial loft and warehouse space into a 240,000 square foot creative office campus with incubator spaces carved out for businesses and communities. Once this project is completed, it will house between 700 and 800 employees and become an innovation hub for Humboldt Park communities and our West Side as a whole. So I want to thank Joe and his team for their vision and their commitment to Chicago, and of course for their investment, which makes it crystal clear that opportunity and talent can be found on every street and every community and across all of our neighborhoods. Another business leader who's really stepped up and answered this challenge is Roger Oxfield, CEO of Discover. One of the happiest moments that I have experienced in these last 18 months was being present for the launch of a Discover call center in Chatham. Discover could have made this investment anywhere, but the company made it here in our city, taking over a building abandoned by a retailer who left a gaping hole in one of our Southside communities, inspired by our city-wide mission to increase investment on our South and West sides. CEO Roger Hochschild purposely chose to build a customer care center in Chatham, rather than in another state or outside of the country, to offer good jobs with great benefits, education opportunities, and other economic resources to the Chatham neighborhood and the nearby Invest Southwest communities of Roseland, Pullman, Auburn Gresham, South Shore, and South Chicago. Roger's commitment, just like that of Joe's, showcases just how positive and wide-ranging the impacts of public-private sector investment can be, and serves as a shining example to the rest of the business community. And yes, that is a challenge. Challenge to the business community as to why they must be part of our recovery and our rebuilding efforts. In a similar vein, Maurice Smith, CEO of the Healthcare Services Corporation that we know as Blue Cross Blue Shield, who knows the importance of bringing transformative change to our underserved communities. Back in August of 2020, many of us joined him and his team to cut the ribbon to Blue Cross Blue Shield's new multi-purpose center in Morgan Park. The center transformed the same abandoned retailer's store into a vast employee workspace, creating 550 job opportunities for local residents to take advantage of, as well as address a chronic lack of access to high-quality health and wellness resources in Morgan Park. He and his team also plan to open a new Blue Cross Blue Shield office facility in Pilsen later this year. Maurice's passion for uplifting underserved communities, as well as his business acumen and civic leadership, have made him a tremendous asset to our city. Thank you, Maurice, and the whole team at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I also want to give a shout out to Marianne Markowitz, President and CEO of First Women's Bank. Marianne has been a fierce advocate for greater gender equity and women empowerment. So she decided to put those passions to work, as well as her financial expertise, to create First Women's Bank. Headquartered in Chicago, the bank is the first women-owned, women-led, and women-focused commercial bank in the country, and is on a mission to grow the economy while simultaneously creating opportunities for women who grow alongside it. I'm grateful to Marianne and her team for leaning in with intention to address the disparity that we see all too often in financing and in asset access for women, to make this a more equitable, inclusive entrepreneurial opportunity for women in our city. Thanks also to the numerous development teams that have been the finalists and winners of our Invest Southwest RFPs. Thank you for your commitment to Chicago. As we've known it time and again, we will be your partners on this journey to revitalize our commercial corridors on the south and west side. And you have made a bet on Chicago, and we intend to make that bet pay off. Last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't give a hearty thanks to each and every one of our community leaders who have stepped up, and all of our residents who are so lucky to serve. This long list of residents and leaders who have stepped up and showed up for communities is long, and I just want to say we love you. In the past 18 months, I have brought on stress and grief and our intense emotions unlike anything we've felt before. And yet, during and after this collective suffering, these leaders continued to do their part to look out for the health and well-being of their fellow Chicagoans. The first community leader that I'd like to acknowledge is Kate Marr, Executive Director and CEO of the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Under Kate's leadership, and especially during the height of the pandemic, the Food Depository tapped into its network of more than 700 food pantries and soup kitchens to address food insecurity in our city. Last year, the organization distributed a whopping 117 million pounds of food, the largest amount in its 42-year history, and continues to be a close partner with the city and our food equity work, even generously funding a position in the mayor's office to drive our shared food equity agenda. Thank you, Kate and her team. Let me also recognize Dr. Rami Nashibi, Executive Director of the Intercity Muslim Action Network, Iman, who has done incredible work to support our most vulnerable communities and residents, including returning residents. Through initiatives like the Green Reentry, Dr. Rami and his team have been able to provide transitional housing, life skills education, and sustainable construction industry training for returning residents and high-risk youth. I am grateful to him and everybody at Iman for their work on this initiative, as well as their ongoing efforts to revitalize our city. Thank you so much, Iman. Another impactful community leader over the course of this last year has been, in particular, Rabbi Shlomo Soroka, Director of Governmental Affairs at the Agudath Israel of Illinois. His organization, alongside the City of Chicago, at Zala Chicago, and his center, Chicago Center for Rufaa 311, launched an initiative to vaccinate Chicago area Holocaust survivors, as well as educate them about the vaccine. Rabbi Shlomo said it best, quote, "It was important to protect these community members who have survived so much in their lives, only to face a new threat from the pandemic," end quote. Thanks to Rabbi Shlomo's leadership throughout this initiative, more than 130 Holocaust survivors received their vaccine. I want to thank Rabbi Shlomo for his partnership, his friendship, his wise counsel always, and continued advocacy on behalf of Chicago's Jewish community. Next, I also want to uplift the hard work of Carlos Nelson, CEO of the Greater Auburn Gresham Corporation and member of the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team. In early 2020, the first COVID-19 death in Illinois happened just 2 blocks away from Greater Auburn's office, prompting Carlos and his team to double down on their work to address health disparities in the Auburn Gresham community. That work continues with the help of many, including Alderman Moore and others, Alderman Brookins. And the vision of its long-term residents to make sure that their lives are better. That work is important and we must support it. So I am grateful to Carlos and his team and all the stakeholders in the Greater Auburn Gresham neighborhood. And last, I'd like to thank our residents for not only doing their part to fight this virus, but for taking part in this historic budget process to make their voices heard. Last year especially, we ramped up our efforts to engage residents, to ensure their needs and concerns were reflected in the 2021 budget. We knew that was more important even this year. And this year, we are proud to have deepened this commitment by bringing forth the most robust budget engagement process to date. This budget engagement process was the earliest and most comprehensive that has ever taken. We engaged communities from all across the city, which included convening 4 meetings with citywide leaders, 6 regional roundtables with community-based and neighborhood-based organizations, 4 internal focus groups with our city commissioners. And the city hosted focus groups with labor and faith leaders, as well as with members of the city's advisory and engagement equity councils. And on top of this, the city hosted 3 budget forums to give residents the opportunity to provide feedback, and we are grateful for their candor when they shared their concerns. Every comment and every concern were captured, and a final report will be found on the city's budget micro website. In addition to the public engagement portion of the budget, the Office of Budget and Management, in coordination with Chairman Dow and the Committee on Budget and Government Operations, held 2 sets of aldermanic working groups over the course of 12 meetings to discuss City Council's priorities for the 2020 budget. 31 members of you participated in one or both of these sessions. These robust engagement efforts were led by Tina Holm, our Chief Engagement Officer, and her able team, and supported by UIC's Neighborhood Initiative. I want to thank the organization's director, Thea Crum, and her amazing committed team for their tireless work and profound commitment to authentic, equitable engagement. UIC's report will be posted soon. Our residents asked and advocated, and we listened. And I hope upon viewing the budget and the list of proposed investments, you will see that your voices are found in these pages, and we stand ready to deliver. Chicago has certainly endured a fair share of crises, but at this time, again, what has gotten us through our trials and tribulations that threatened to make it crumble once and for all is the unity and the faith of its people. Faith that one day we will rise above the suffering once and for all, fully step into the light of our proverbial promised land. Today, I stand before this esteemed body to help our city take the next step forward toward renewal and recovery by overseeing and passing the budget for 2022. My team and I look forward to working with you on the next steps of this journey and to answer any questions as you dig into the details and stand ready to assist you in any possible way. And as the hearings commence and the debate ensures, please, folks, remember to be kind to one another. We can disagree, but not be disagreeable. We need to work together in order to better the lives of our residents. We are so lucky to serve every single day. So let's take this moment to commit to investing in a Chicago that is truly more equitable, more inclusive, and more resilient. This budget, after all, is an investment in the success not only of our generation, but in the generations to come. Let's work together now, united through our shared faith in this great city. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention today. God bless all of you, and God bless the great city of Chicago. Alderman Dow, you moved to suspend the rules. Is there any subsequent motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I've submitted to the clerk a proposed resolution providing for publication and setting the date and time of a necessary hearing, and I ask that that resolution be read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the resolution.
Whereas Mayor Lori E. Lightfoot on September 20th, 2021, submitted to the City Council the executive budget of the City of Chicago for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022, and ending December 31, 2022. And whereas it is provided by law that at least one public hearing shall be held by the corporate authorities on the budget document not less than 1 week after publication thereof, in such manner as the corporate authorities may determine, and prior to final action thereon. And whereas it is further provided by law that notice of such public hearing shall be given by publication in a newspaper having general circulation in the city of Chicago not less than 1 week prior to the time of such hearing. Now therefore be it resolved that the budget document for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022 and ending December 31, 2022, as submitted by the mayor to the city council, be published in pamphlet form and made available for public inspection in the office of the city clerk and in the Chicago Public Library no later than September 24th, 2021. And be it further resolved that the public hearing on said budget document be held by the city council at 12:00 p.m. on October 14th, 2021 in the city council chamber in City Hall, unless it is determined that a remote hearing is prudent due to COVID-19, and the city clerk is hereby directed to cause a notice of such hearing to be published in a newspaper having general circulation in the city of Chicago at least 1 week prior to the time of such public hearing.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it.
A budget hearing schedule will be provided to aldermen after this meeting. The overview and first budget hearing will begin on Friday, September 24th at 9 a.m. I now move we return to the regular order of business. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. And may I just add, Chairman Dow, you were always a great leader, and through this process, you did not disappoint. Now, the next chapter begins. Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Alderman Brookins.
President, I move temporary suspension of the rules so that I could be recorded aye on the first vote on ethics.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. Alderman Mitchell, is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam President, there being no further business before this body, I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The meeting is adjourned.